Welcome to the Psychology and Manifestation Podcast with your host, Sudane Firestar. Discover how to tap into the power of science and spirituality, the practical and the magical, to create the life of your dreams on your terms. Let's get into it. Hey, lovely soul. Welcome to another episode of the Psychology and Manifestation Podcast with your girl, your host, Sudane Firestar. I am so happy you are here. I'm kicking off today's episode with a little bit of inspiration from someone I speak about a lot here on the podcast, Amanda Francis. So I was listening to one of her bonuses called Pulling Money Out of Thin Air, and she said, "It feels magical. Was it magical or was it you? Were you the magic? Did you have magic you could work for your own good?" And I love this so much because it speaks to the importance of all of the work that you do to manifest the desires of your heart, because it can feel like a miracle and like something came out of nowhere, but you have to give yourself credit because you're a part of creating that miracle. You are the magic. You are creating these magical outcomes in your life. You're doing the work, right? So whether that's the practical pieces, the spiritual pieces, you're journaling, you're meditating, you're working on your dominant vibration, making sure that you feel good and that you're in the alignment with the desires of your heart, right? You're taking inspired action. You're doing all the things to create these miracles in your life. So yeah, sometimes it feels like it came out of nowhere, but you are responsible for creating these miraculous outcomes in your life. So keep doing it. Keep working your magic, hun. Keep doing the damn thing. So this is a perfect transition into what I'm talking about today. Today I'm talking about clarity, because that is one of the ways in which you get to work your magic. When you're crystal clear about what it is you want to manifest, it is so much easier for you and the universe to team up to make it happen. And when you're specific and clear, the universe has a better understanding of exactly what it is that you want to call into your life. Again, when you're specific and clear, it also makes it easier for you to take inspired action and to work your magic with the support of divine guidance to manifest the desires of your heart. Clarity is manifestation 101, because it's hard for the universe to answer you when you ask for what you want if your asking is vague or confusing. If your question is vague or confusing, your manifestation isn't going to be what you actually wanted it to be, and then you'll be like, this doesn't work. Manifestation doesn't work. But it does work, and the way to ensure that it does work is to get super clear on what it is that you want and make your asking to the universe or God, if that's what you believe in, very, very clear and concentrated, okay? And then also behind that comes next is the belief, right? Believing that you really can have the desires of your heart and that you are worthy of the things that you want to call into your life. But that is a conversation for a whole other time. So how do you start creating clarity around your manifestations? One of the best ways to do that is to create a list of desires and be super specific on this list. So what does that look like to be specific or to be a deliberate manifester? So I'm going to give you a few examples of what that could look like. So the examples I'm going to use are like manifesting a car, a job, a baby / your pregnancy / the birth of your baby, parenthood, because for me personally, when I was working on manifesting my daughter, I wasn't very clear on what I wanted things to look like after I conceived my daughter. So I was just kind of living life by default in that area. And so things were just a little bit messy, and I felt like I went through an entire culture shock after she was born. So I want to give you some examples of ways in which you can be specific if one of the desires that you're calling in is a baby and parenthood. Okay, so let's start with the example of a car. So an example of being kind of vague when you're trying to call in a car is to be like, yeah, I just want a car. Like, I really need a car, or I just want a new car. But how can you make that desire on your desire list more specific? So what kind of car do you want? Like, what do you want the brand to be, the make, the model, the color? What do you want the features of this car to be? Do you want a sunroof? Do you want, all-wheel drive? Trying to think, like, do you want heated seats? Like, what do you want your experience in your car to be like? So when you're trying to manifest something like material, like a car, try to be as specific as possible about what it is that you want it to look like, because that's going to make it so much easier for the universe to deliver exactly what it is that you want. And I mean, like, what do you want your experience with your car to be like? Do you want a brand new car? Do you want a certified pre-owned car? Do you want a leased car? So really get specific on what it is that you want things to be like. Do you want to own it? Do you just want to, like, do rental cars? Just be very specific on your manifestation list when you're trying to call in material things. And, the example I have here of a material thing is the car. Okay, so say that you want to call in a new job. So you could just say that I want a new job, and in that job, I want to be a psychotherapist, right? But that is super vague, because you might get a lot of jobs where people are offering you opportunities to be a psychotherapist, but maybe it doesn't really meet your specifications of the things that you really want. But the universe is going to have a hard time calling that in. You're going to also have a hard time doing your job search and knowing exactly what it is you want if you don't have all the details down. And in manifestation, it's not just about all the details. Obviously, the how is not your responsibility, or maybe not obviously, but I'm letting you know that now. The how is not necessarily your responsibility, because it's like this or something better, as Amanda Frances oftentimes says. Like, your manifestation could be better than you ever expected, and it can come to you in a completely different way than you initially expected. But that being said, you still want to put some details down so that the universe has a clearer idea of what it is that you want and what is going to bring you joy and happiness and be fulfilling to you. So when you're thinking about your job, think about the following. What do you want a typical day at work to feel like and to look like? So, what do you want your job responsibilities to be like? What do you want your colleagues and supervisors to be like? What do you want your relationship with them to be like, to feel like? What kind of work environment do you want to be in? Do you want to be commuting? What do you want the length of that commute to be like? What do you want that commute to feel like? Do you want it to be relaxing? Do you want to be able to, sit back and listen to podcasts? So like maybe that means that you're taking the train, like the Metro North if you live in New York City, or like, New York State. But just think about what you want your experience to be like if you're commuting. Do you want to work remotely? What do you want your work environment to look like? Do you want to work in a cubicle? Do you want to work in an open concept space? Do you want to work from home? What kind of outfits do you want to wear? Like, do you want to be in athleisure? Do you want to be in like a chic suit? I mean, like, think about what you want the vibes to be like. What kind of company do you want to work for? Do you want to work for a family first place? Like a place where they really value quality time with family, right? Like, what do you want your benefits to be like? Say, and if, I'm going back to the family part, how about if you want a place where they have childcare, like in-house, where your baby is next door, right? And you can go check on your baby throughout the course of the day. Or maybe they are just really empathetic when you need to take off time to attend to your baby for whatever reason, or to take them to doctor's appointments, or because they're not feeling well. If you are striving to be a parent, or you are already a parent, then you want to kind of keep these things in mind. So just think about all of the details of what you want your work experience to be like, the ways in which your work gets to support you, and the ways in which your work can be fulfilling. So what kind of customers are you serving, or clients are you serving? What is your relationship like with them? What is the dynamic like? So get as detailed and as specific as possible in manifesting this dream job. All right, next example. What did I say? Baby. Yes, baby. So, what do you want conceiving your baby to be like? What do you imagine your child to be like? What do you imagine your relationship with your child to be like? As I mentioned, I didn't really think about what was going to happen after I conceived my child, or, what I wanted my pregnancy to be like and feel like. I was very busy. I worked a lot during my pregnancy, and I worked up to the very end, literally till the day before, where I went in to have a C-section, because my daughter was breech. But I didn't really want to have a C-section. I wanted to have a vaginal birth, and I didn't get that. And I wanted to have a doula, and I didn't get to have the doula experience. But I wasn't very clear on that. And also, to be honest, I had lost a bit of my belief when I found out my daughter was breech. And so I kind of gave up on manifesting that vaginal birth and having the birth experience that I really wanted. So as I mentioned before, like part of your manifestation process is believing that you can manifest the desires of your heart and keeping that faith even when it feels like it's not going to happen. So even up to the very day when my daughter was scheduled for the C-section, but she was also scheduled for this procedure where they were going to attempt to turn her. Like I could have been working my magic and scripting and believing that I was going to get to have the birth that I wanted, but I kind of gave up on it, and I was just like, I guess this is the birth I'm going to have, even though I didn't really want that. So hold the faith, and then also just be very clear on what it is that you want and what you want your birth to look like. What do you want your hospital stay to look like? What do you want the food to be like? How do you want to feel while you're there? Do you want a private space? Do you want a shared room? Do you care about those kind of things? Like, what do you want the food to taste like? What do you want the amenities to be at this hospital, right? What do you want your interactions with the nurses to be like? How do you want them to treat you? What do you want your doctor to treat you like? Or how available do you want your doctor to be for you throughout your birth and your pregnancy? And then after that, what do you want your maternity to be like? Your maternity leave to be like? What do you want your experience at home to be like with your child? How long do you want your leave to be? So these are all the things that I didn't really think about. What do you want childcare to be like for your child? Do you want to have an au pair? Do you want a nanny? Do you want a mother's helper? Do you want to take your child to daycare? Do you want a parent to help you? If you want, a grandparent to be the one that's primarily taking care of your child if you're going back to work. Or, do you want to stay home for a year with your baby? Like, what do you want parenthood to look like? And what do you want your relationship to be like with your child? What do you imagine your day-to-day experience to be like with them? Are you, doing formula? Are you doing breastfeeding? Do you have the support that you need for breastfeeding to be easy? Because I oftentimes hear from others that it's super hard, but it doesn't have to be hard, right? It can manifest all of the resources that you need to support you in breastfeeding to your heart's desire, right? What do you want your child's sleep to be like? Do you want to do sleep training? Do you want to co-sleep? What do you want it to be like and feel like when you have your baby? So these are all the details that you can think about when you're thinking about manifesting a baby or just what you want parenthood to be like. So even if you're currently a parent, what do you want your day-to-day experience to be like with your child? What kind of time do you want to be able to spend? What do you want your work hours to look like? Say, for example, if we're going back to that example of calling in your dream job, how does that support your life with your family? How does it support your mental health? How does your job support your physical health? These are all the things that you can put down on this list of desires. And aside from just creating that desire list, you can also use the practice of scripting. And so scripting is writing out, the manifestation as if it has happened in the past, as if it just happened, oh my gosh, I just got my dream job and it's so much better than I ever could have imagined. My colleagues are so wonderful. They're loving and supportive and they're friendly. They have a great sense of humor. I just love spending time with them. They're collaborative, so you're just talking about things that have happened in the past, or you can just talk about it like it's happening in the present. Oh my goodness, I just got my dream job. I'm working in my dream job and it's amazing. Every day is wonderful. I just love being there. We have all of these amenities. We have a break room and it has an espresso machine and I get to take, rest breaks whenever I like. And my clients, they're amazing. They're so invested in what we're doing together. And you know what I mean? So this is a way that you can do scripting. And in a previous episode, I believe it was episode 6 of the manifestation podcast, the psychology and manifestation podcast. But back in a previous episode, I mentioned that you should not write, your dreams and desires as if it happened in the present tense. But what I really meant was don't write about it in the future tense as if it's going to happen and it's far, in the future and it's so far away from you. You want to write about it in the past tense or the present tense. So that's a correction for that previous episode. I believe it was episode number 6. It's definitely the episode when I talk about expressing gratitude. So check that one out, where I talk about creating your list of desires in your dream list. So now that I've given you examples of what to do, let me give you some examples of what not to do so that you can see the contrast. And I'm just giving you examples from my life experience. I personally feel like that really helps me to learn really well when I see the contrast. Okay, this is what it looks like and this is what it doesn't look like. So example of me not really being specific about what I wanted. So a few years ago, I had written out in my desires that I wanted to increase my net worth. And I didn't specify how I wanted that to happen. And of course, the how is not my responsibility. So maybe what I mean to say, or what I actually mean to say, is where I wanted this to happen within my funds, my resources, my money. And so I also, this is another kind of a bonus tip. Something that is highly recommended by coaches who work on money mindset is having a money date. And so a money date is when you take time to look at your expenses and your income, a budget if you have one, and to just see where money is coming in and where money is going out. Because that really helps you with your money mindset and manifesting the types of money that you want. Like, because then you're more aware of what's coming in and what's going out, and you're more aware of when your money is increasing. So that's something that I used to do, but I had taken some time off. Like after having my daughter, I had kind of put aside my money dates. I wasn't really paying attention. And so I thought that my net worth wasn't going up, that it hadn't increased. But then when I actually took some time to go back and do a money date, this is like months ago where I took some time to do this money date. But what I found was that my net worth actually had increased, but I had no idea because it was increasing in my retirement funds and in my investment funds, which I hadn't really been attending to or paying much attention to. Like I have money that goes into those funds automatically, that's withdrawn out of my my checking account, but I wasn't really looking at them to see like what was happening with them. Like, were they going up? Were they going down? I just really didn't have an idea. But the thing is that when I said that I wanted my net worth to increase, I really meant in terms of my like liquid money, you know, money that I could touch now, money that I could circulate now. And if you're not familiar with circulation or circulating money, some people in the manifestation world prefer to say that they are circulating money rather than spending money, because when they use the term spending money, that gives the impression that the money is leaving you and it's not coming back. Whereas circulating money creates the impression that like what goes around comes around, like you're putting money out, but that money is also coming back to you and you're getting more and more money that comes back to you. So if you want to change the way that you speak about money, you can use the term circulating money. So that's a little bit of a tangent, but super beneficial. So you can put that into practice. But anyway, yeah, I wanted money that I could actually spend or circulate. I wanted to be able to use the money and access it now, not like 10, 20, 30 years from now when I'm in retirement, you know? So I hadn't really been very specific about that. And so that's just one way in which being vague about your manifestations kind of manifests or calls in a vague result. So you want to be very specific about what it is that you want. And now in terms of confusion. So I'm going to give you an example of some ways in which I confused the universe last year around, I guess it would say, summertime into the fall. Because I had like a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C for where I was going with my career. So plan A was that I wanted to work full-time for myself in my own business because I just really wanted the flexibility to be able to show up as a mama for my daughter. You know, I just wanted flexibility in my schedule. I wanted my resources to be flexible. And so that was plan A. And also, you know, I really love the work that I do in my business. That's another factor. But anyway, so yeah, there was plan A. But then I also had plan B, where I was like, okay, well, if that doesn't work out, then, you know, I could always just work in my current organization and then just switch into a different position, you know, doing the same work as a school psychologist, but working for a different set of schools that would be closer to where I live. And so then that would cut back on the commuting time, which was one of the primary issues with where I was working before. And so then, that's plan B. Then plan C was like, oh, it'd be so great if I could work remotely. So maybe I should look at working for a different company or organization that would allow me to work from home so I can work remotely. And so then that would cut back on that time, away from home, away from my daughter. So here's the deal, right? As I mentioned earlier, a part of manifestation is faith and belief that you can call in the desires of your heart and that the universe is really going to team up with you and bring whatever it is that you want into your life. So clearly my belief and my faith wasn't there for plan A. Like, I didn't truly believe that I could work for myself full time in my business. And so it was kind of confusing to the universe, right? I'm like, oh, I want to work for myself in my own business. Oh, but I don't really believe that I can have that. So I also think that maybe I want to still work where I am now, just closer to home. But oh, maybe I want to work somewhere else, but remotely. So that's confusing. Not only is it confusing to the universe because it's like, well, what do you want exactly? It's really hard to give you with what you want because I don't know if you want plan A, B, or C. I don't know if you want number 1, 2, or 3, right? But then also for myself, when we are manifesting, we're not just writing out a wish list and then just being like, okay, universe, let me see what happens. Give me what I want. And this is actually a critique that a lot of people make when it comes to vision boards. They're like, you create a vision board and you just expect all these miracles to happen, but you're not actually putting in any effort, and that's not how life works. And yes, as I mentioned before, miracles can happen, but a part of the miracle comes from inspired action. So that means that you're receiving divine guidance after you've asked for what you want, and you're receiving these inspiration, like, these moments of inspiration, whether it's like an idea that pops into your head or a resource comes your way to help you move forward to manifest what it is that you want. So for me, going back to that example of having these plans, these 3 different plans for what I was doing, I was splitting my energy, I was splitting my attention, and I wasn't giving my all to anything. So, we could pretend that I was splitting my energy into 3, into thirds. 1/3 of my energy to each plan, which is gonna kind of weaken the power that I have and the magic that I have to manifest the desires of my heart, because I'm wishy-washy and I was wishy-washy and I was giving my attention to all of these things, so I was trying to do work in my business, but I wasn't giving all of my attention to that and believing that I could make it happen. So I felt like it was a struggle oftentimes, and like I wasn't receiving that, divine guidance and inspiration that I needed to go to work full-time in my business. Then, plan B was, looking for another job opportunity within my current organization, right? And so then that meant that I also was applying to jobs and, sending out emails and making phone calls and like stalking people in different ways on Teams to get responses when people were not responding. And that went on for months. That went on into the fall. And I didn't actually get a job offer from one of the jobs that I was like stalking from July until like, I think end of October, probably early November. So that also was draining and took a lot of my time and attention away. And then, option number 3, I was applying to these remote jobs, right? And, speaking to recruiters and negotiating with recruiters and even, having interviews and, actually having to go through these different like tests to even prove that I was an appropriate candidate for the job. Like they needed to check my Wi-Fi and like, was I on a secure Wi-Fi connection? And, could I teach or conduct an evaluation on Zoom? Like, so I had to go through, like a full like test where I had to like record myself on Zoom and then submit that, so it's just, listen, how was I going to go full time in my business when, I was throwing my energy in all these different directions and confusing the universe and myself and, putting tons and tons of doubt out into the world. Anyway, so these are just some of the ways in which being vague and being wishy-washy can make it hard for you to manifest the desires of your heart. But you're listening to this podcast, so you're not going to do that. You're not going to do the things that I did in the past that were vague or wishy-washy or confusing. So, summary, and what you can do, your homework. So make sure that you get very, very clear on what it is that you want to call into your life and be as detailed as possible, not necessarily about the how, like how it's going to happen, but what you want and why you want it. Make your list of desires, and make a master list of desires, and continuously add to it as new things come to mind. And a recommendation from the book The Magic, as you're working your magic, is to cross off your manifestations as they come true, as they come to fruition, right? And so that's going to be exciting too, because you get to see it working, you get to see it happening in real time. And then, as I mentioned before, another part of the work is to script. So write about your manifestations as if you just received it and how you'll feel when you receive them. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like, get yourself hyped up, get yourself excited. Write about your manifestation in detail, in the past tense, in the present tense, not the future tense. And then also, when you're writing this list of desires, something else I want you to consider is that don't write things down that you think you should be including on your list of desires. It really has to be something you want, you desire, not that you think that you have to desire, that you have to want because society has told you that that's what it takes to be successful, as I talked about in my previous episode, episode 8. Like, you know, when I was talking about alignment, like really think about what it is that you want. Like, what is really going to get you excited? Like, what is good when you think about it and you visualize it and you script about it? Like, what's going to get you so hyped? Like, yes, like this is amazing. This is my dream. And this would make me so happy. This would be like me living my best life. So make sure that when you're writing these things down, that they don't feel like meh or lackluster or like, well, you know, this is what society told me I should do. This is what my friend told me I should do. This is what my family wants me to do. Make sure it's what you really want and is going to bring you joy. And, you know, you can do all of this in a journal if that's what you want to do, or you can write it on a computer if you want to have like a Google Doc or a Word doc where you're keeping all of these details. But make sure that these things are accessible, right? And sometimes you can even script every single day. It doesn't even have to be that you script once. You can spend each morning scripting a little bit. You know, obviously, if you have a lot of desires, you're not going to spend your whole morning doing it. But you could even spend like 5 to 10 minutes a day, like in the morning, scripting and getting yourself all hyped up and excited. And, you know, that's a great way to go into your day with positive energy and, you know, contributing to your dominant vibration being positive and joyful. All right, my love, that's what I have for you today, and that is your homework. If you loved what you heard today, if this information I share with you was supportive and hyped you up, got you super excited, and you feel like it offered value, please follow the podcast. Please subscribe on whichever platform you're on, and please share this podcast, links to the podcast with people that you know who you feel like would really love it and benefit from it. Okay? And yeah, that's it for now. I look forward to checking in with you and speaking to you next week. And thank you so much for being here with me today.